Cool. All right. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together in this house to worship you, to study your word, that we may see how it applies in our lives and how we see today how people act just like they did back then. And mostly to see how great you are and how slow to anger you are and how full of wisdom you are. And we can see how that and help us each and every day in our lives. We ask these things in Jesus' name, that you bring us wisdom out of your word. Amen. When we left off, the Israelite people were coming out unscathed while the Egyptians were taking a bath under many tons of water. But I guess many can think, well, what if they swim? It didn't matter. You know, it mentions about the bodies starting to come upon the shore. So, but when I read Exodus and the Israelite people, the only thing that comes to mind is complain. You know, so when they first came out, the first part of actually in chapter 20 is praise and glory to God. Now, to me, it was probably very heartfelt, right? They just got rescued by the Egyptian army, you know, and God brought them out of captivity, and you know they were all full of praise. But I see the same thing happen today, like 9/11. When 9/11 occurred, the churches were full of people. You know, they were so full there were people standing outside. You know, and to me, that's just kind of the way I see with people, is that, you know, when they need God, they look for God. Whenever they feel they don't need God anymore, then He's nowhere to be found. And part of this was that, like, too far ahead. Part of this was that everybody got their own little voice in when they were singing to Him. Too far ahead. Exodus 15 is where we'll start. Yeah, that's where all they were singing, and at the end of it, it says. But anyway, they were all singing, and at the end of it, Mara, and Elam, that said, Moses led Israel to the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. But the women got their song in there too, you know. And I understand that for that time, because men did most of the stuff, and that's who was addressed in it. And you know, the women had to pretty much, you know, go, hey, going on for our praise too. It was like two different entities, but all in the same entity. It says, when Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur, so for 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. Okay. So that is why it's called Marah. I guess it means bitter. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, what are we to do? What are we to drink? Now this is what I said, I see the grumbling already, because I mean, God just brought them out of Egypt. God just, you know, dropped tons of water on the Egyptian army. You know, how quickly they forget. You know, Jesus meant the same thing when He performed miracles. People were looking for miracles. They wanted to see another sideshow. You know, they wanted to see this and they wanted to see that. And it wasn't long before the people complained. And it wasn't so much that, you know, here was a guy here that, you know, was here to heal the sick, you know, make the lame to walk, stuff like that. But that's not what they saw. All they saw was a sideshow. They saw, you know, parlor tricks. Just because they saw him. I want to see another one. I want to see another. Here they are in the desert, and I mean, their first thing to start complaining, it says, "What are we to drink?" And then Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. And there the Lord made a decree and a law for them, and there he tested them. He said, "If you listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you." And then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there near the water. So I don't know about you, but I like to have a piece of that wood. You know, just let the water run through it in my bottle of water. Nice glass of water. You know. But here they're complaining, and the first thing they do is like, I mean, you ever been thirsty? You automatically go, yeah, sure, God's going to let me die of thirst right here in the desert because I don't have any water. Mm-hmm. You know? But their first thought here, and a lot of the Israelites were like, telling Moses, you should just let this in. Why am I going to die in the desert? You get a little bit of thirst in me. Yeah? And it's this I've said, first thing that comes to my mind when I read this is complain, complain, complain. You know? So, they camped there near the water. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month after they came out of Egypt, in the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." What's that? Complain, complain, complain. You know? So that's all they see is, you know, what do I not have? Not what do I have? So then the Lord said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them and see whether they follow my instructions." So on the 6th day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and it is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days. So Moses and Aaron said to the Israelites, "In the evening you will know that it is the Lord who brought you out of Egypt." Like they didn't know it already. Yeah. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. And they said, "Well, who are we that you should grumble against us? You know, why is the Lord taking it out on us?" And when I read this, I first thought was, they were telling Moses, "Well, who are you to go to complain to God about us? We come and tell you our problems, and what do? You run and tell God right away? Tattletale, you know." So God's going to bring this against us because you went and complained. Moses also said, "You will know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumblings against him." And who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord. And Moses told Aaron, he said, "Say to the entire Israelite community," so he gets somebody else to tell it to him. "Come before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling." And while Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, they looked toward the desert, and there was the glory of the Lord appearing in a cloud. The Lord said to Moses, "I have heard the grumblings of the Israelites." So they're hearing it firsthand now. And it ain't Moses coming back and telling them, it's God coming telling them. And when I pictured this was, we said about the twins, when they run and go, "Ah, blah, 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 blah." And they go, "What are you telling on me for?" And mom comes in and goes, "I don't need him to tell him. I can see everything he's doing. And this is what's going on." So this is like what God's doing here. He's coming straight to them and saying, you know, uh, fall back where I was at. The Lord said, Lord appearing in the cloud, the Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them at twilight, you will eat meat. In the morning, you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. That evening, quail came and covered the camp. And in the morning, there was a layer of dew around the camp. And when the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, what is this? For they did not know what it was. So Moses said to them, this is the bread of the Lord. He has given it to you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Each one is to gather as much as he needs. Take an omer. For each person you have in your tent. Omer is a tenth of an ephah. It's like a basket. So it'd be like a pack, I guess. Yeah, I don't know what you can relate that to. Bread would be like, take a loaf of bread. You know. So the Israelites, they did what they were told, and some gathered much, some gathered little. And when they measured it by the omer, he who gathered much did not have too little, and he who gathered little did not have too little. Each one gathered as much as he needed. So, but my first thought is, they tell you, all the bread's free. You know, go to the store, just get what you need, right? Because what's left isn't good. It's not going to be any good. You know, how many people go in and grab 40 loaves of bread? Well, when COVID happened, you know, they had to put a limitation on toilet paper. Never understood that. I mean, we had 20 rolls, a 20-roll pack or whatever it was in the pantry, and the whole time of COVID, didn't run out. They can go buy more, you know, but, you know.
So you didn't have bathroom all the time?
Didn't have to go that much.
No, if you're working, you're not using the home stuff.
But Hunter was telling me that Tim Macklin went to the store and he tried to buy like 372 packs. And he goes, why do you need that much toilet paper? You know?
Depends what you're pulling.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't be full for too much if you use that much toilet paper.
We didn't have to stand.
Well, I didn't think I needed that much. I didn't think anything changed.
No, we figured out.
You know, and that all cracks me up too when they say the world's going to end tomorrow. When 2012 was supposed to end the world, people were stockpiling food and
Sunday
water.
when you need it.
Yeah, if the world's done, oh, here I'm the last one on Earth. You know, kind of like it was a Twilight Zone episode where this guy wanted to read and privacy and quiet, not anybody bothering him. And he was stuck in a vault in the bank, and the nuclear war happened. Everything was destroyed on the Earth. Well, pretty much everything. But they found he was the only inhabitant left on the Earth. And finally, I get to read my books, and he dropped his glasses and they broke. So, he didn't get a chance to read anything. So the Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered, okay, and then Moses said to them, no one is to keep any of it until morning. However, some of them paid no attention to Moses, and they kept part of it until morning. But it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry with them. You know, it's the time for him to go, look, I told you. You know, get that stink away from me. I told you. You can't listen. What are you, a child? You know, I could actually hear a guy I knew long ago, his rabbi, he went to him for consultation, so to speak. It was like his it was like a therapist for him. You know, if he had problems, you go talk to the rabbi. And his rabbi was straightforward with him. You know, he said, well, you know, he said, I smoked 2 cigarettes. And the rabbi was like, I thought you said you were going to quit. Well, I'm trying. He goes, no, you're not. You're not trying. If you were trying, you wouldn't have smoked 3 cigarettes. You know? And he goes, pretty harsh criticism. You know, therapists don't talk to you like that. And they go, oh, you poor kid, you poor soul. You should try harder. Maybe chew gum instead. So, but Moses said to them, to no one to keep till morning. And so Moses was angry with them. Each morning, everyone gathered as much as he needed. And when the sun grew hot, it melted away. So instead of just getting, they knew they were going to get it every day. You know, God said, I'll give you manna every day. These bread flakes every day, right? And on the sixth day, since you're not going to get it in the seventh day, right? Because God's not going to bring it. That's his day of rest. That, you know, get twice as much as you normally get. Now, in 6 days, you know how much you use. If you don't, you know. But on the seventh day, so if you eat, like, if you could eat 3 of those pieces of bread, get 6. And it won't go bad, right? So each morning everyone gathered as much as he needed, and when the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much, 2 omers, okay, for each person. And the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He said to them, this is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow will be the day of rest, the holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want and bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil, and save whatever is left and keep it till morning. Now, they don't do any of this stuff. If you notice, the Pharisees used to be really hard when they said, you're what he said to Moses, or said to Jesus, I saw your disciples going through the fields and eating the wheat on the Sabbath. You're not supposed to do that, right? And so Jesus says, well, how many of you, if shepherds, if you have a sheep that gets lost on the Sabbath, you do not pull it out of the hole? God sets your day of rest, but it doesn't say that, sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. But these people were doing above and beyond what they had to do. Okay? They were told to take 1 omer, they were taking 2. Where if they were told to take 2, they would try to take 4. They were starting to stockpile, being greedy. All right? But the day of rest is the day of rest. It says here is that they saved it until morning as Moses commanded, and did not stink or get maggots in it. Eat it today, Moses said, because today is the Sabbath to the Lord, and you are to find any of it on the ground today. 6 days you are to gather it. The 7th day, the Sabbath, will be there will be none. It won't be any. So he has emphasized it twice here. He said, nevertheless, some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather it. They found none. And the Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions? Bear in mind, the Lord has given you the Sabbath, and that is why on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Everyone is out there. Everyone is to stay where he is on the 7th day. No one is to go out. So the people rested on the 7th day. And the people of Israel called the bread manna. It was white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Take no more manna and keep it for the generations to come, so that they can see the bread I gave you to eat in the desert, and when I brought you out of Egypt. So Moses says, Aaron, take a jar, put no more manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept for generations to come. As the Lord commanded Moses, Aaron put the manna in front of the testimony, that it might be kept. And the Israelites ate manna for 40 years until they came to the land that was settled. They ate manna until they reached the border of Canaan, and no more is 1/10 of an ephah. That's a long time to eat this. This must be really good. And you read fantasy books, and they tell you about elven food. It's supposed to be so good, right in the fantasy books, that if you eat it, you just don't want anything else. Okay, and I said, well, that must be what manna was like. A flat wafer that tasted like honey. You ever eat with crackers a lot, a little bit of honey on it, it makes it taste a lot better. But so here they ate all this manna, right? And then it said, now I've never seen the Ark of the Covenant or what's in it, but I was told that in the book tells you what's in it. There's manna from there in the desert. Aaron's staff, the because it's budding. Okay, it's a wooden stick that starts to bud. And the Ten Commandments are supposed to be what's kept in the Ark of the Covenant. So he brought them to the land at the border of Canaan. Now that's what the land they were supposed to occupy. Land flowing with milk and honey. The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin. They traveled from place to place as the Lord had commanded them. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." And I can't imagine that's as nice as they said it. So Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?" You know, this whole thing, when God led him to the desert, right? He said it was easy. It was like when they first come out of Egypt, he said, "I could have took you this way," right? Would have saved them so much time, but they would have had to fight with these people in war. You know, so he took them this way, which was long, right? And he did it to test them. He wanted to see how much they would complain and complain and complain. Oh, and then and I've heard people say, you know, that's just the way Jewish people are. I've heard that. Well, that's what you're talking about here is Jewish people. But I think everybody does it. You know,
That's right.
and there are people out there that if the sun's shining, oh, it's too hot. Wish it rained so it cools off. Then it rains, you know. Can't go out and do anything. It's raining. I wish the sun was out. I wish it was cloudy. Oh, it's too cloudy. I wish the sun was shining. You know, there's always a complaint to be made. Long time ago, many long time ago, I used to umpire Little League. And when I first started doing it, I tried to make it so that, you know, wouldn't hear people playing from either side of, you know, each team. And it didn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do, somebody's going to complain. So I made it my goal when I umpired is to make it fair for the kids. Okay? And they appreciate it. Okay? And before I started the game, I tell the pitcher, I'd say, "Look, I can't see the whole plate." I said, "I'll be on one side of the plate." And I said, "If you want to work the inside of that plate, I'll see every pitch comes across." I said, "You can get it. You're taking your chances if you're going to the outside of the plate." And that's just the way I am. But like I said, you can't. Well, I think it's a stone. So you can't please everybody. You know, because you can't get what you want. Sometimes you just get what you need. You know. So here, Moses is asking why they're complaining to him. You know. But the people were thirsty for water, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us out?" I love this part. Every time I hear this, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock to die of thirst?" I don't think they're really that thirsty. You know, I don't think it was really that bad, but they made it more than what it was. So Moses cried to the Lord and said, "What am I to do with these people? They're almost ready to stone me." So the Lord answered Moses and said, "Walk on ahead of the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel. Take in your hand the staff in which you struck the Nile, and go. And I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this, and the sight of the elders could have witness. You know, if anyone just went out and did it without anybody to just pay attention, and the elders were there, so he just can't go back and go, "Well, the Lord had me go strike this rock," and they'd have been like, "The Lord was there all the time." You know, you could have just told us the water was there, but he took the elders with him, and that way they could see when he struck the rock and the water came out for the people to drink. So Moses did this on the side of the elders of Israel, and he called the place Massah and Meribah. It probably has something to do with, struck the rock and water came out. Where they named things, It said, because the Israelites quarreled and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" It's so easy for people to say, "Well, I'm having, all these problems going through my life. Where's God?" I've heard many people say that, "Where was God?" Well, there's a story I read I don't mean just to hit anybody on a different note, but this woman, she lost her kid, and she was reading a letter, or writing a letter to God, and saying about, where were you when my child was sick? Where were you? And God's answered back with a letter that said, the same place I was when my son was nailed to the cross. It's a pretty good story. So they said, where's God whenever all this trouble and stuff hits you? Same place he is whenever you have good tidings. Right there. And everything is, now these people here are supposed to learn patience on that. You're supposed to learn patience. You're supposed to learn trust in God. Okay? But a lot of them find that it's just easier to complain to Moses. They have a scapegoat right now. Right? And anytime something bad happens, they're not going to go to God and go, where are you at? Because he just sent all these plagues on Egypt. They don't want to get struck dead. So they go to Moses and complain. Let Moses get struck dead. So, it says the Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, choose some of the men and go out and fight the Amalekites. So tomorrow I'll stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands. So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. And as long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on each side, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady until sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. And the Lord said to Moses, write this on a scroll as something to be remembered. Make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the memory of the Amalekite from under heaven. Moses built an altar and called it, the Lord is my banner. He said, for hands were lifted up to the throne of the Lord, and the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. So, just to clarify this now, all this was this, Moses held his hands up. It's the same as cheerleaders at a game. It's the same as the crowd in an event. Okay? If the crowd's cheering you on in sporting events, be whatever it is, it's the same as if you're in any event. If the crowd's cheering you on, you get a burst of energy that you cannot believe. Okay? So God was with the Israelite people. And so, not to say that God wasn't with them in the battlefield, to say that when they looked on Moses, right? Moses is cheering them on. Moses is giving them that gusto, that let's go. Right? As long as he held the staff up, right? It was like he was on their side. God was on their side. They're looking at it. And whenever he faltered, his hands got tired, their first thought was probably, lost. Moses is getting tired. He's not on our side anymore. And the Amalekites were looking at it. Look, their leader's fallen. They're done. So they would get a burst of energy. But when Moses' hands were held high with the staff in his hand, even the Amalekites were like, they're getting a second wind. We're done. So that's the way I view that when I read that. I don't know if anybody else reads it, but that's how I see it. And when I read any book, or if I read any story, it doesn't matter how the author meant it. It's how I read it and how I see it. And I have a tendency when I'm reading a book to place myself in the story. Okay? I read The House of Sand and Fog, or I tried to. I kept throwing it across the room. The book irritated me. They come to a part in the book and I'd be like, that's stupid. Then I go pick it back up and try to get past that part in the book. The part in Sand and Fog, The House of Sand and Fog, the part that got me was, much like the movie, is the storyline is, not to get off track here, but the storyline is this lady had a house in California, okay, and she was away on a trip, okay. Well, while she was gone, the city rezoned, and her house fell in an area that she was behind on taxes, okay. They rezoned it and said that she owed all these taxes, okay. And when she came back, they had sold her house for taxes. So she got an attorney to try and get her house back. And the attorney fought with her and they found out that they zoned it wrong. Well, the guy that bought the house bought it for like $12,000. Okay? And the city says, well, we're only going to pay $12,000 to get your house back. And the guy didn't want $12,000, he wanted $48,000. He's selling it. He can sell it for whatever he wants. Okay? But they sold it illegally. And her attorney says, if you'd only checked your mail, like it's her fault. And that's the part that irritated me. I was like, you gotta be kidding. So that's why I threw the book. And
Did it help?
me? Yeah, I eventually got through the book. But, you know, and if I say with the movie, I get like stop in the movie. There's a couple movies that I'll just pause it and walk out the room.
Oh, you don't go to remote?
No, I can't cost money. A long time ago, I used to play PlayStation, and it's a good thing it has a tethered cord on it. Because I get mad not being able to finish a game, I throw the controller and then grab the cord and pull it back. It costs a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, how many times do you smash a controller and buy a new one and go, I ain't got that money anymore, you know? But back to this, I mean, I see this happen the same way, right? They had a quick scapegoat. Like I said, they had Moses. It wasn't like they were going to directly to the source. God came back and complained. Moses goes, look, these people are complainers. You know, and God's like, yeah, I know that people are complainers. Put you here for a reason. You know, so he goes, tell them, do this, right? And again, God shows them a miracle. Okay, and Joshua is going and fighting these people. Okay. Moses is holding the staff up, and people look at Moses going, all right, he's on our side. So then in the third month, after the Israelites left Egypt on to the very day, they came to the desert of Sinai. We all know about Mount Sinai, right? Ten Commandments. You know. A lot of people used to think that Noah's Ark landed on Mount Sinai, but didn't land on Mount Ararat. And they're told, but can't find it, you know. And I think the reason that you can't find a lot of these things is because I think Jared wrote it once before. They found the Ark of if they found Noah's Ark, they'd probably make it a shrine. Yeah, and next thing you know, it's a temple. Yeah. Then Moses went up to God. After they set out from Rephidim, they entered the desert of Sinai. And Israel camped there in the desert in the front of the mountain. And Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, this is what you are to say to the house of Jacob, and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now you are to obey me fully and keep my covenant. And out of all the nations you will be my treasured possessions. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And these are the words you are to speak to the Israelites. Now, we learn later on that a lot of these people take this wholly to heart. You know, God chose us over everybody else. You know, we are the only ones that get his blessings. And it isn't what he's saying. He's saying, I'm choosing you to be my possession. You know, and I will make a great nation out of you. You know, God choosing them. Okay. Well, to back up a little bit, we notice that God's trying to wipe the Amalekites out of history, right? But as soon as you write down that you're trying to wipe out people from the history, there's a record of it, people will remember it. But that's why he says to jot it down, you know, eventually they'll be forgotten. And you won't even know about them because you really wrote it down. So, So Moses went back and summoned the elders of the people and set before them all the words the Lord had commanded him to speak. And the people all responded together, "We will do everything the Lord has said." So Moses brought their answer back to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, I'm going to come to you in a dense cloud, so that the people will hear me speaking with you, and will always put their trust in you. Then Moses told the Lord what the people had said. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and have them wash their clothes and be ready by the third day, because on that day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. Put limits for the people around the mountain and tell them, be careful, do not go up on the mountain or touch the foot of it, for whoever touches it will surely be put to death. He shall be surely be stoned or shot with arrows. Not a hand is to be laid on him. Whether a man or animal, he shall not be permitted to live. And only when the ram's horn sounds a long blast may they go up to the mountain." I watch a lot of movies. Some of the movies, when they show something traumatic event, it happens in two different aspects. A lot of people get scared and run away. A lot of people get curious and want to come near. Okay, so here God's going to come down, right? And He's telling Moses, tell the people, as you prepare yourself, you got to, by this day you got to do all the stuff I tell you. And by this day, I'm going to come down on the mountaintop. Don't even come near the bottom of the mountain. Okay, and I'll bet that there are a few people that go, I want to see this. I want to get close. And I want to exactly see what Moses sees. What makes him so special? All right, and that comes on later. All right, so God tells Moses, look, don't even touch the bottom of the mountain. None of your animals. Okay, if anybody does, they're to be killed. And nobody's to touch them, and they can't go up and, push them off a cliff, or they don't want anybody to touch them. So shoot them with arrows, hit them with stones, whatever keeps you away from them. They're to die at a distance. And I guess that's so you're not guilt by proximity. So after Moses had gone down the mountain to the people, he consecrated them. Then they washed their clothes. Then he said to the people, prepare yourselves for the third day. Abstain from sexual relations. And on the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning. And with a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast, everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God. As they stood at the foot of the mountain, Mount Sinai was covered with smoke, because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up. The smoke billowed up like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. And the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder. Then Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. Movies try to depict this as, they see this big cloud and fire and lightning, right? And other people can take this because they say, well, it could have been a UFO, right? There's a lot of different things that you can make things sound good as much as you want, other than what they are. And men have been trying to do this for years. I meant mankind. Men are stupid, but the Lord descended to the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up, and the Lord said to him, go down and warn the people, so that they do not force their way through to see the Lord, and many of them perish. Even the priests who approach the Lord must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out against them. Meaning he'll just destroy them. Moses said to the Lord, the people cannot come up on Mount Sinai, because you yourself warned us. Put limits around the mountain and set it apart as holy. So the Lord replied, go down and bring Aaron up with you. But the priests and the people must not force their way through to come up to the Lord, or he will break out against them. So Moses went down to the people and told them. Like I said, you can see in the crowds, right? Moses gets to go up. But the elders think that they're probably as good as Moses, right? We're the leaders of Israel. Well, what makes you get to go up and we don't? And then, worse, he goes down and gets Aaron. Brings Aaron up. But the elders and the priests are not allowed to come up. You know? And I read that and I'm thinking there's probably a lot of animosity sitting here, you know. Why do you get to go and I don't? So, while Moses up there said, God spoke all these words. He says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt and out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven or above or on the earth beneath the waters below. You shall not bow down to them and worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to thousands of generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. And you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. For 6 days shall you labor and do all the work, but on the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. And on it you shall not do any work, neither you, your son or daughter, nor your maidservant, or your animals, nor the alien within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heavens and earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land that your God has given you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, and you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. And you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant, maidservant, his ox or his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. No keeping up with the Joneses. Okay? Ten Commandments, a lot of them call them moral. You know, they're like common sense things, right? But the first one is probably the hardest one that people have a tendency to keep. You know, a lot of people just don't put God into the equation. You know, you say, okay, you can't kill somebody else. Okay, and a lot of people say, you can't kill somebody that's against the law. And they said, well, you can't steal from anybody because it's against the law. So they take God out of the equation. They just say, you know, it's not right. And covenant your neighbor's house. He's got a nice house. I wish I had a house just like that. But as soon as you buy a house and make it just like his, he buys something else. And you go, oh, he's got that. I got to get that. And they went, but they put spotlights and cameras everywhere. I've got to do twice as much. You know, there is no end to that game. There's guys that work to play that game. If one guy dumps a cup of water on you, you know, you can sure that other guy's going to come back with a pot of water. Right? The next thing you know, you got to get a bigger pot, get a cooler, and next thing you know, you got dump trucks waiting outside, or bucket loaders waiting outside to dump water on top of somebody. You know, the game never ends. You can only go so high, right? Yeah. So when the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear, and they stayed at a distance and said to Moses, speak to us yourself, and we will listen. But do not have God speak to us, or we will die. And Moses said to the people, do not be afraid. God has come to test you, so that the fear of God will be with you and keep you from sinning. The people remained at a distance while Moses approached the thick darkness where God was. Then the Lord said to Moses, tell the Israelites this, that you have seen for yourself that I have spoken to you from heaven. Do not make any gods to be alongside me, and do not make yourself gods of silver or gold, or gods of silver or gods of gold, but make an altar of earth for me, and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, your sheep and goats and your cattle, wherever I cause my name to be honored, I will come to you and bless you. If you make an altar of stones for me, do not build it with dressed stones, for you will defile it and you will defile it. If you use a tool on it, okay, so it says it's, just make it out of stones. Don't put cement there, don't carve it, make the stone look fancy. God wants something plain. All right? Don't build it with dressed stones, fancy stones. Use it with tools on it, and do not go up to my altar on steps unless your nakedness be exposed on it, unless your dirty secrets come out. Okay. I'm going to stop right there. We'll continue with Exodus 21 if that's where we're led to. But pretty much the Ten Commandments are common sense things. God showed him early on in there, and he said, if you come near to me, I'll come near to you. I mean, was it James 14:7, I think it is? Something like that, or, come close to God, and he'll come close to you. Get off the fence, with ones with double stand. You can't serve two masters. Pick God. God will come to you. God's the only one that chases man. Okay? God's been going after man since the beginning of time. He made man, so he could worship him. Made Adam and Eve, and then since then he's been chasing man. But all the other idols, men chased after them, and there's nothing there. They made stones for fertility. They made stones for thunder. They made idols for this and idols for that. But God's telling him here, he said, look, you're to worship me alone. That's it. No, nothing else. I don't want a graven image. You don't need it. I'm right here. You make an altar, sacrifice to me, make it plain. I don't want anything fancy. I don't want anything spectacular. I mean, when your kid made you a present for like Mother's Day or for Christmas, and it was handwritten note, real plain and simple, that went on the refrigerator. I don't have any kids, but my niece, my brother's granddaughter, there's a lot of crap on the refrigerator, and it's all from her, and that stuff's more important to a lot of people's lives than getting a piece of jewelry. My mom was ecstatic. We made necklaces with paper clips and those, that tape stuff you stick on your shelves, and you wrap those around each and every one of them. She thought that was the greatest thing. That's what God's saying here. I don't need anything elaborate. I don't need any, you don't need to bring me diamonds and jewels. I mean, good grief, I made them. You can't flatter me with stuff that I made. But flatter me with stuff that you can do to show that you honor me. So, Heavenly Father, we thank you for today's lesson, studying with us and bringing the Word of God into our lives. And we ask that you bring with Jerry as he brings the lesson. Be with us as we go on our days. And ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.